Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are going to be talking through the 2026 marketing technology trends. I hope you'll join us for the next 45 to 60 minutes. Uh, AI is really having a seat at the table with marketing technology, and we are going to take a look at that. Okay, first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So, uh, I most recently, at the beginning of September, started Punch Tape Consulting, which I'll tell you a little bit more about at the end, but is basically a marketing, consulting, and training business. And I've had a lot of fun catching up on what I didn't know and then fine tuning the services that I could give to partners. So, a little bit about me is that I was a VP of Content Strategy at O'Reilly Media for many years. Loved doing that and being a part of technology communities, helping to educate them. During my time there, I was a conference chair of many different events, but nearest and dearest to my heart was OzCon, which is an open source conference. I was chair of that for 5 years, and that was really a pleasure and an honor to be a part of. More recently, I was director of open source strategy with Intel, and I did that for almost 2 years. That was really great. I got to educate quite a large community of software engineers about open source and help to craft the messaging around what Intel does in open source as well. During that time, I was also the ecosystem lead on an OPIA project, which lives with the Linux Foundation, and that is about enterprise AI and RAG workflows. So that was something I didn't think I would get to do, start up a project and a community in that way, but that was very rewarding as well. So Punch Tape Consulting really is all about what I've learned over the years. And my guiding sort of mission and thought is that authenticity of voice, impactful content, and real world storytelling paired with innovative technology builds a passionate and vibrant audience that elevates all involved. So I really do believe that. I think that in a time when AI is really coming in and shaping many different parts of our lives, this piece about authenticity and making connection and that real world part, I think, is still very important. I think you'll see it continue to be important. And I think that with AI tooling in the marketing space, it is going to be about being able to amplify all that is human to your audiences. So I think that's really important. Just getting started, I wanted to kind of put into context marketing technology and sort of larger general technology trends. You'll notice with larger technology trends and marketing trends, they don't change super quickly. So I don't think anything that you'll see here, and we'll go through these in a minute, is anything that you wouldn't have seen necessarily in 2025. So GenAI kind of, if you weren't necessarily involved in like transformers and NLP, kind of came out of nowhere, and it was like ChatGPT took over the world, right? So that is continuing, even though some people say that there is going to be sort of a something, there's going to be a crash, right? But as far as I can see, it's the beginning of any new sort of technology innovation, in that there is a lot of energy and a lot of companies in the space that are looking to make their mark. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the marketing technology specifically. So Gen AI is still here, still moving forward, still making great strides. Some of the things I think that you'll see a little bit more mainstream in 2026, especially from sort of like a marketing vantage point, is agentic systems will now have a multitude of agents in them as we move forward. If you look at some of the other the GenAI Nightmares event that I did, there's a couple of sessions in there that talk about sort of specialized agents, right? There's the agent that would do the marketing, whatever marketing thing that you needed to do, but also one that looks at security, one that looks at scheduling, etc. So it makes sense that there would be this little team of agents working together to make a system work. And we'll get to whether people are using AI agents in marketing shortly. But in general, this is sort of where the technology world is going. Small language models, as opposed to large language models, are definitely kind of coming into their own. Large language models, which power things like ChatGPT, are amazing. They're trained on these massive data sets to hopefully give you good answers. Small language models are more about specializing, right? So I think even in ChatGPT, you can look in there and find a smaller language model on marketing, right? So these are the types of things that you'll see in specialized industries like finance, insurance, manufacturing. It's when you need to sort of like, you can fine tune that LLM for what you need it to be. And then I think you might start hearing and thinking about AI partnerships, right? I think this is one of the ways to look at AI as advantageous rather than maybe taking jobs, is how can you utilize, or prompt with in ChatGPT or something like that, and have it be a partner. How can it be additive to what you're doing in your workflows? Then there's, of course, AI at the edge, right? AI takes a lot of compute power, but there's so many things at the edge. There's phones, there's sensors. You see we have smart Internet of Things. So being able to process, at the edge quickly when you're expecting something in a millisecond, being able to do that is something that you're going to see more and more of. The power that is needed to do that, and the compute that is needed to do that, is not as huge as you would think. So you'll be seeing more sort of apps with AI on your watch, etc. And then we'll see more and more immersive and extended reality. This is something that doesn't ever quite take off, I feel like, unless you're seeing it in games. But I do think we'll see it in manufacturing and industry and stuff like that. And I think Facebook just announced a new couple of sets of glasses that are looking at this as well. So, and what you'll notice here is basically all the trends are around AI, which is kind of the point I want to make. But so secure computing, for instance, is all about, in a world where there's no longer sort of a security moat around things, but the access is, everybody can come in to a certain point. Certain people can get access to this, but not this, and this, but not this. So there's confidential computing, which is security at the chip level, which has been really interesting. There's digital provenance, which we'll talk about, which is a way of knowing where an image or text originated from. And zero trust security, which is kind of what I was saying, right? Like you need to make sure that the person that is getting access to, a data set or a document really has the ability, or the permission, I should say, to get that done. And then green technology is something, again, that I feel like you hear a ton about, but I think that we're going to start seeing the reality of it with all of these huge data centers being built, because AI actually uses a ton of energy, which is something that people don't think a lot about. But I think you'll start to see that. I know there's one, I'm in Massachusetts, there's one being built here, a data center. And so we'll see how that goes. But so that's just to give you a little bit of context. So marketing in 2026, what I have seen sort of around in my research and in doing my own work, is that it's really touching upon these 6 areas. And it really is mostly about AI, and we'll go into these different areas one by one. So there is, of course, discoverability, by which I mean sort of SEO and all of the different EOs that have come up. Research and analysis, that's something that with the advent of big data, being able to process all of that, really there's a necessity for AI. So we'll talk a little bit about how that has come to fruition in marketing. Like I said, there's authenticity and trust, and there's an interesting example that came up about that recently. And so you have to think about that with your brand. If you're marketing to, technical people, that they need to make sure that the education that you're giving them, the guidance that you're giving them, is something that they can trust. And I feel like with AI, it can be we're all a little skeptical. So we'll see how that goes. Personalization, which is definitely something that has been around, is getting even more individualized, right? So it used to be like one to many, and now it's one to one, but on a much more like it can, well, we'll get to it, but but in many different ways at scale, you're seeing personalization. Content and asset experiences, I think you'll see that AI has had influence there. And I think it's interesting to see who will say they're using generative AI in this space. I feel like people are a little touchy about it. When is it okay? When is it not okay? How can I use it? And so that's been particularly of interest to me because I've been in content for 20 years. And then there's this idea, and this is where I think a lot of time can be spent in the orchestration and automation places, because basically, you can set something up and not have to go to all of the different social channels. And furthermore, you can get feedback across these different channels. So I think it's speeding up, marketing campaigns. And we're going to go into each of them. So let us go to the first one. So discoverability. So as you know, probably personally, audience attention is no longer centralized to one spot. It's certainly short, right? I know myself, I'll be looking at different videos, doom scrolling, etc. And if something doesn't get to the point, and I swear to God, 6 seconds, I move on. And I hate that, but it's true. Search, this is kind of a bold statement, is being absorbed by AI systems. I don't think that's completely true, but it certainly has made itself known much more quickly than other technologies have come in. When I say AI systems, I mean like the chat GPTs, but I also mean those AI summaries that you're seeing at the beginning when you put a search into Google. Those are often good enough. And we'll talk about that and how you can get your company inserted into those. Interestingly, I feel like websites used to be sort of this thing that nobody went to. Even as recently as like a couple years ago, I was like, who cares about that? Nobody goes to websites, right? Nobody's going to your blog website. But it seems to me that more recently, because people are searching all over the place, they have become sort of this place where you need to hang your hat, have your blog, have all of these different things, like sort of a landing spot. And it's helpful in many ways in bringing in that data to you so that you can then push out more data-driven campaigns. And so the only other thing I want to say before we get into specifics is you'll see that a lot of these kind of cross over into each other, which is why I had that sort of dodecahedron type of thing going on in the last slide. But just note that a lot of the tools and stuff that we mention might have a discoverability tool, they might have a personalization tool, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there is a social media sprawl going on. Again, I'm sure you yourself are on many different ones. I know I can see like 4 that I go on a daily basis. So that makes it harder to reach the different people. It makes it harder to make sense of the signals that you're getting. And sure, your audience might not be on all of these. You might have an audience that's on Discord and on LinkedIn, and that's great, and that's where you should put a lot of your energy. But you always want to be trying out different things, and I think most importantly is, how do you scale, right? And how do you make sure that if you are focusing on two and you're experimenting on three, how do you make it so that people are on the team are doing meaningful work rather than basically cutting and pasting, right, all of the different things to X and then to you know whatever, WhatsApp, right? So this is just the way of the world. This isn't everything, but it's an interesting place we're at right now. So we talked a little bit about AI summaries and LLM answers, and I just put up two examples here. So I just put up a very general request into Google, which is marketing strategies. And so it starts by telling you what a marketing strategy is, which is great. So I think when you're looking up for a definition or something like that, it's really easy to get it. You don't have to go to a website anymore, but you'll notice there's the little link. It always looks like kind of like a little belt buckle or a paper clip or something. That's where you want to get your company, because that definition is being pulled from a website, right? So how do you start to instead of just being listed below this, of course, this AI overview starts to be a list of all the different websites that could tell you about this, that are coming up in the different rankings, right? But how do you now, so that's been pushed down below the fold, right? How do you get yourself into some of these AI overviews? And so my understanding is that it is by having deep factual content. There's been a lot of talk about having FAQ pages, having up-to-date content, which is nothing new as far as like traditional SEO. But so you can see that there, and then you can see here I put the same query into ChatGPT, and it basically is giving me something that it has pulled, of course, across the different data that it has collected. And I don't see any little belt buckles, but generally it does have citations, right? And so at first I kind of was thinking, I don't necessarily touch all those, but the deeper I get into something, the more I am clicking on them. And I was reading a little bit across Reddit, and I was talking with some folks, and that has been a successful way for people to get noticed, right? So that's definitely something, and I think at first people were like, let's throw SEO out the window. No, you shouldn't do that. But you should definitely augment your SEO tactics with what we're calling, and I see Angelina Ward put in here, I've heard SEO now being called search everywhere optimization. That's probably true. So there's definitely, I've heard LLM EO, I've heard AI EO, I've heard Geo. So who knows what it will eventually be called. That's the other thing to remember too, is that during this time, I think, again, I think this is driven by having lots of different companies and them trying to brand themselves and get the word out. You'll probably hear a little bit of a shifting definition. And maybe it will be, in the end, it will be search everywhere optimization. But I think this is something, again, I think, and I'm not a spring chicken and I'm using these, right? That you definitely have to incorporate into your strategy as far as discoverability, right? And to do that, it really is about deep content, factual content. Oh, and also these the schema data on your website, which you can see. So these are all things you can do manually and by yourself. There's also tools, and we'll have a list of tools that you can use at the end of each of these areas. And then so I've started to notice this too as I was putting this together. There is an expectation now that when you go somewhere, some of these are shopping sites, some of them are technology sites, but you'll notice that there's always sort of a place where you can learn about what they're doing. There's the resources area, or for developers, or training. So I think you need to make sure that you're kind of standardizing these things, and that is where you can be driving people. And with privacy issues, not issues, but privacy regulations that have been getting tighter and tighter, especially in the EU, gathering third party data is definitely harder, right? You can, like, my website has an opt out, so lots of people are like, no thanks. And I'm like, great. But what is interesting is that you can, when you drive people to your site, you can have a really simple login, right? And you can start to gather that first party data, which is so important to feed into your CRM. It's so important to start to be able to know your audience, and we talk about that again later. But that first person data and building that database of people and knowledge and stats and what everybody is doing is super important, I think, to drive the AI tools, right? So AI basically eats data for lunch. So making sure that you have that is really important. And so driving people back to your website with gated content is a really good way to do that. Okay, so just a sort of a recap around discoverability. Really need to think about data-driven decisions, which is what we talked about. Looking at, and AI tools enable this, I think, in a way, because everything became so fragmented and there's so very much data. Humans really aren't the best at analyzing that and producing summarizations or guidance or anything like that. And so you really need tools that have AI baked in. So you definitely need to look at, is that something that makes sense for your strategy moving forward in 2026? Like I said, I think don't stop your SEO strategy, but you need to include, and I don't think it's too very hard, right, to start to include these AI or GEO tactics. Like I said, we'll pop up some tools in a minute, but it's additive. There's a little bit more content work to do, I think, but it's well worth it. And I think it's a little bit more of a journey to get people to click next into those little things, but it's early days, and I think people will start to do that. And then we talked about first party data to inform personalization efforts, and just basically figuring out how to bring forth campaigns that make more sense. So tons and tons of companies out there. You're already starting to see some of them. Like, I think Copy AI, which you can imagine is a content company, was already bought by someone. But there's a bunch of different cool companies out there. I put here at the end, I put in some sort of bigger names that you might know. But here I put some ones that are startups and that are really moving the needle. And I think I would say also, try different things, right? You don't have to totally overhaul everything if that doesn't make sense for you. Like, try for search, like focus on the search stuff, right? Take a look at, and we'll be doing more content on this too if you're interested, but take a look at Surfer SEO or SEMrush, right? How can you start to implement that? How can that help you? And how can you start to see, the return on investment there? Email still super powerful, right? How do you start to use that space? And then also content distribution across all of the different socials. So I would just, and I can make this all available after the fact. How do we take steps? I guess that's what I would say too. Take a step, right? Take a look at one of these areas. Look at what they have to offer. Everybody has a trial. But you should do this. Don't get left behind. I feel like there's a little bit of an adversarial or fear factor with AI. And to me, for me, what's worked is getting to know it more and learning what to do. And this is for 2026. 2027 could be totally different. Stay tuned, I guess. So I think, did I have a question about this? I did. I'm just going to see if anybody answered this question. If anybody answered this. I don't see that anybody did. Okay, well, hopefully we'll get some answers eventually and I can make that public. But I was trying to see if there was anybody that was looking at already doing this type of stuff, which I'm sure there is, but we didn't get that on the voting there. Okay. So next, my most favorite, content and asset experiences. So like we said, totally attention is shrinking while content volume explodes. AI can create at scale, but should it? And I've had some deep conversations with myself about that, basically. And then the other thing is that people are popping all over the place. They're not staying in one place and learning about your brand or learning in general. So how do you take advantage of, or how not take advantage of, how do you spread your campaign in a smart way over the different places that hopefully data shows you your audience is? One thing that is like popping off right now, and I don't see any signs of it stopping, YouTube Shorts. People, I myself, again, I use myself as an example a lot of times, but as top of funnel, a quick way to introduce yourself, a quick way to be consistent. This is something I do in a couple of different little micro series weekly. One of them I showcase here is 30 seconds or less. And I started these in September. And it's basically just technical concepts explained for business people. And so that has been a great way to introduce my consultancy to people, getting hundreds of views on these, putting together a playlist. It's an easy way. I've gotten a lot of interest via Reddit. And these are always driving people back to looking at and seeing Punch Tape Consulting, what's that? And it's driving traffic. And then also taking, and I'll do that with this as well, but with the event that we did on Halloween, that was an 1.5-hour event. And then I took out each of the little sessions that were in it, which were about 12 to 15 minutes, and put them together. But even 12 to 15 minutes, you can see 67 views, which it's just interesting. I think it's just the nature of how we're looking at things right now. So there's certainly a place for all video, but YouTube Shorts has been really interesting. I think relatively easy to pull together. And I've been using Canva to do these, but again, as you'll see, there's so very many things. But if you get an assembly line going, these are definitely worth putting out there. There also is a lot of things to think about, like when to put something out during the day. I've seen a lot of differences with that. So that's something you definitely should look at. Okay, so content creation. So content creation, I have personally used, I have worked with ChatGPT as an editor. I have worked with it to bounce ideas off of, or to sometimes help me if I am explaining something technical. Am I getting it right? I don't, it's definitely something that you need to double check. But if you were to say, as I did in this thing here, I basically took this one post that I have, which is, does your business need a content strategy? We all know yes. But I basically was like, hey, if you were going to create derivatives of this for a marketing strategy, what would you do? And it came out to, they were like 100. There was 100. You can see here, it starts, I show the first part. Not that any of these were particularly bad, but obviously you don't necessarily want to do 100 different things, right? And it didn't give me these 100 different things, which would have been another interesting thing to come up with. But it did give me ideas. That's what I mean. It's kind of like I've used it as someone to bounce someone, isn't that scary? But thinking through things, right? So of this, like it thinks that you should do 100, right? I'll probably take 5. Do you know what I mean? But it does definitely give me something to think about. So, and the other thing too here is the content that it creates, like it might create a derivative. There needs to be a human in the loop, which is definitely an AI term of more and more of old. But in this case too, if you did have it summarize something for you, do not take it at face value. It's just a way to start, basically. You can also prompt it to start to say, I don't know if everyone's done this, but you can say, punchier or more academic. You can say, take a look at the this website here and make it more like these. Again, I don't think these are finished products. I don't think this is how you should write all your content, but I do think it's like another input, and can help with derivative pieces, right? It can help take like a really large complex paragraph and be like, here's some ideas, right? And generally what I've found, like I said, is like it's a partnership where I'm like, that's a good word, but how about this and this? So that's something to think about. And again, I would say test it out. Um, Test out all of these different things. As far as sort of connecting with your audience and them being, across different, their journeys not being direct. The way I have kind of looked at that, or linear, I should say, is like all of us, there are many different facets to what makes us us. And I think when I'm thinking of an audience, I'm thinking sometimes you're looking to read and get a jump start, right? Which I have as an example here. One day I was feeling silly and I decided to put this jumbo cat and make people laugh. Do you know what I mean? And that's a way to get people to remember what you're doing. And then this last one, which I think might have been one of my first ones because I look silly in it, but I decided to do this TGIF with punch tape to kind of let people know who I was, right? So they're all about sort of top of funnel, me trying to reach out to an audience and looking at them in different ways, trying to make them laugh, trying to get them to know me, and then trying to share some of my expertise, hopefully that helps look through things. So that's how I've taken, and I'm sure there's other people, other ways of looking at this, certainly. And if you have anything to share, I'd love to hear it. But this was kind of some of the ways I was trying to, or am, I should say, trying to connect with the audience and not always making it sort of a hard sell. Not that we should ever sell with marketing. It's more about an experience and education and, being there when the need arises. So I would definitely, if you're not doing so already, definitely experiment with different media, different lengths, bring on different presenters if you have them, right? I think there's still very much a wanting, and I think this will continue and grow as we start to not be able to believe our eyes, which you'll see later with the AI people. I think that connection is important. It builds trust. I think, especially if you can get someone that isn't necessarily from your own company to talk about the services or the products you have, that of course is amazing. Tools have made this easier. Like one of the things that you can do with your longer video assets, there's companies like Opus Clip comes to mind, which I think we put here. They can in 10 minutes take an hour event and create 30 different YouTube shorts. Again, 28 of them, meh. 2 of them, pretty good, where you still have to crop them a little bit or smush them around and stuff. But it's interesting, right? Like I said, customer journeys, approach them in different ways in different places. And that I do think there is a place for Gen AI tools in writing, editing, design, etc. That's the other thing I didn't even really mention is like image creation. I am not a designer. I'm not at the point where I'm ready to pay a designer, and I have been working with ChatGPT or Canva AI to help me make these little backgrounds. And again, it's sort of like I'll take this piece here, I'll prompt it so that it does something a little bit different, and I've honestly had a lot of fun with that. But it is not the level of a designer. Maybe it will be someday, but it is not now. Okay. Next. Oh, sorry. Content, image, and tools to try. Lots of cool things with content. You've got your ChatGPT, presentations, you've got Gamma. Repurposing, I think this is a place that AI can be especially helpful right now. Sort of helping to repurpose, whether it be not necessarily the 100+ thing, but if you're very specific in your prompt and your request, or use something like Opus Clip to take a longer video and have it sort of do the rough, sort of like, here's an area that's interesting. And then design. You've probably heard of Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. These can create cool things. And I think it can be helpful to communicate with your designers. I think it can be fun to use the stuff sometimes, but it hasn't taken the place of a designer, I don't think. And then there's definitely companies that have, from soup to nuts, right? That you can go and it's going to help you with, marketing, images and quotes and all of that good stuff if you want to. So you can see that there. Personalization, again, this is something that was already headed our way, but AI is just able to do it on a much larger scale, much more quickly. You can do it by customer. One of the things I think that you're really starting to see with these companies and the tools that they have is not necessarily just that it can personalize based on the data that it's being given, but it can now be predictive. I think that's super cool, and I want to see how that's working out. And like I said, you'll see here, it can go well beyond like, hey, John, like we all get emails where they're like, hello. So I'm going to show you an example here. I got YouTube TV recently, and basically the driving reason was Hallmark TV, because that's very comforting to me during the Christmas time. I don't know if we've got any Hallmark Christmas movie watchers out there, but outing myself with that. So you can see here, I had it for like, I don't know, a month, and it basically knows that I'm basically looking for comfort TV. I couldn't show everything here, but it's telling me there's like Gingerbread Lane, which is amazing. And then what I found particularly, and so it's doing this for its 9 million users, right? And so it's basically, in this case, it's, an app, and it's gathering all of that data, because of course it is. But what's interesting to me is they even put, was this email helpful, right? So you're even getting more data. I didn't answer this, of course, but whether this was helpful or not. So that was really interesting to me. So in this case, they definitely had, it was like 3 chunks, right? So 3 different areas of personalization based on my usage, and across 9 million users. And then that email was helpful, was really interesting to me. So I think you'll start to see that more and more. So that's one experience in email personalization. I was trying to find something out there, but didn't want to like steal from anyone. So I used Alto, which on the left-hand side, you see I'm not signed in, and it's basically like, these are cool things for you, but not knowing me. And on the right, again, using the first-party data it has of what I've searched on its site and what I've looked at, you can see it's very different. And I have to say immediately, I was like, what's that? So again, 34 million visits monthly. The only way you could do this is using AI to process all of that data. And so there's lots of tools. I think, if I'm not wrong, Ulta is using Adobe, which has a lot of these different tools in their suite. So yeah, personalization. This is where we go back to you really, really need that first party data, right? So this is where it all starts to tie in, and you really need to have that CRM and be collecting that data. So that might be, let me step back. The first thing is making sure that the data that you have is sort of clean and easy to access and all of that. And so some of these tools do this. And if they don't, then you need to work with your data science team if you have that. But so you need to have good first party data, right? And so the infrastructure to make that happen, and then the data collection are probably the first thing that you want to do in 2026 if you haven't. If you do have that, later on we'll talk about CRMs, and you want to see if you can, budget for something that has some AI enhancement into it. So this is a necessity. I think personalization is creepy, but also good. And then I think we'll see more and more that predictive aspect get more and more honed in to where you're like, oh my God, like even now, like our phones are listening to us. Like I'll be like thinking about something even, right? And all of a sudden something shows up on my, my scroll. So this is definitely something that we need to be implementing. Yeah, and just that it's different ways. It looks at where you are. It can look at what keywords you're looking at. So, like I said, generally creepy, but also good if you're in marketing. Lots of different tools to try. Like I said, big company like Adobe has things, and then there's lots and lots, or a big company like HubSpot. Then there's Klaviyo, Akio, lots of different smaller companies. And again, these are starting to get, some of them will blow up like great, and be like the one to use. And some of them I think will get purchased and their technology will be used, like Adobe will purchase them. So definitely take a look at those. This is an interesting area, authenticity and trust. I mean, this is hard for me to say. I feel like I'm inside the AI like bubble because it's just AI all the time. And it basically is like, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's scary. It's quickly becoming sort of like the de facto thing, that no matter what career path you're on, you're figuring out, is this something that is going to help me, hurt me, change? It's just certainly changing the way things are being done. So, like I said, learn more about it. I think that's the most important thing we can do. As you probably know, it's getting more and more difficult to trust your eyes and ears. At first, when we started to see these funny images come out, they always looked like horrifying. Like I remember there was one, I wish I had it here, where it was like cavemen taking a selfie. And it was like, they always had this like creepy look about them. And it wasn't realistic, right? But now I saw there was like one actor that like is AI generated and it's going to have a SAG card or something. Like it's getting really hard to start to tell people. There was a new update in one of the tools that it's happening, right? I mean, there's probably stuff we're looking at now that we don't know it's fake, but it's fake, right? And so because of that, certainly with text and news and stuff, and this is more sort of on the educational side, digital provenance is something that people are starting to look at, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I put this here because some images are clearly fake. This is, besides that caveman one, this woman inside the orca is hilarious to me. It's terrible, but it's obviously fake, so it's hilarious. Anyway, so like you could use that because it's fake. The one on the right apparently is like the Pope in Balenciaga, which never happened, but that looks pretty real, right? So there's just, well, let me go to the next slide. So apparently, I don't know if you've all heard about this, but there was some feedback people didn't like that Coca-Cola's ad here on the right, you can see a little snippet of it. It was actually similar. It had Santa and had lots of little critters and completely AI. And people were kind of like, I guess, like they didn't like it. Whereas on the left here, we have, this was an Apple commercial and it was very cute. And it was real puppets. And they made a big deal of that. It's almost sort of this like reaction to AI, right? So like right now, I think we're in this place where people are liking real better than AI right now. So that's just something to think about depending on what area you're in. How do you use that sentiment for AI generated content? How do you use it? Do you use it and it's a picture of a woman in an orca that makes you laugh? Do you not use it? Do you make a point of saying it's not AI, right? So it's just interesting. I was surprised that there was such blowback for the Coca-Cola ad. Like I was like, I don't really care. But apparently there is enough to make the news. So we'll see. So digital provenance, right? So just to go back with that. So it basically is verification about where content comes from and whether or not it's been altered. And I just think, well, again, I think this is something that is probably more front and center for education. A lot of content marketing sort of starts to dip into education. And I think it's important to be aware of this. And I think you'll see more of this depending on the area that you're in. There is, like I said, because you can't believe your eyes and ears. And I think trusting a brand is something that we're continuously working on. You want to be able to showcase, authenticity. You want to be ready for any regulations that come up, again, depending on, what area you're in. And it's actually a way to, if people are starting to use your content or your images, it is a way to track them and make it known that they are yours. So this is something I think that, we could talk a lot more about, but it's something to be aware of as sort of like a marketing individual. So I don't know if everyone's heard of the uncanny valley, but it's where you're like, is that a person? Is it not? But something makes you feel weird. And so you don't want people feeling weird when they're looking at your brand or thinking about your company. So like I said, I think you can use them when you know it's really fake, or I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think you have to think about what you're doing in your particular space. But it's something to give some thought to. And then I think provenance will, this is probably a little early, but I do think that this is something that we are going to need to have ways to showcase that we have trusted content. If for some reason something is incorrect or misrepresented in your marketing, you're going to see that's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for you, the company, and the marketing, and you're going to get a lot of distrust. Okay, so research and analysis. This is sort of, been around again since the advent of big data, but AI gets more and more speedy. The technology around LLMs has made sort of getting this research, summarizing it, and putting it in front of us in ways that us humans can use has been improved over the last couple of years. So AI and data are like peanut butter and jelly. We can get definitely better insight into the customer journeys, even though it's fragmented. And like I said, you can then make some predictions based on that. And then again, the CRM infrastructure and first party data are definitely key. This was just a quick look at, these are probably numbers you've seen. LinkedIn has 1 billion members. A lot of these other social channels have millions of active monthly users, which is what that is, or daily users in the case of you have Slack there. So there's just a lot, right? And so what I've noticed is a lot of tools are touting real-time audience insight, and also social listening is definitely something that people are talking about. And certain companies, like I think it's Sprout Social, which I have listed here, is something that you're looking at. So there's different aspects that you can look at through AI-enabled tooling that you can gather from your customer journey, right? So like, where are they starting? Good old Google Analytics can do that for you, right? Looking more at different, how like the behaviors, like analyzing the different behaviors that lead to purchase. That what used to be a little bit difficult now is getting just like at scale faster. That's sort of the crux of all of this, right? Mixpanel is a company that has a tool that can do that. Why are people dropping, right? Full Story is another sort of company that looks at the whole customer journey. What channels drive purchase, right? This is probably something that you have a better idea of, but there's another company called Supermetrics that was really cool. And what is your like potential user doing right now, right? So this is sort of even going like they're not even interacting with you yet, but who should you be looking at? And that was that Sprout Social, which I thought was of particular interest. Yeah, and so it's enabling us to get clearer insights, faster insights into like I said, being able to have predictive insights, audience segmentation, automated workflows, right? Like you can set this up and it will start to churn out the insights from the data that you're collecting, which is really great. It's going to take conversations that people are having online where your product or your service is mentioned and be able to like pull out all of the different information that's there. And then this is a recap. Oh, and I thought I had a slide on this, but basically like CRMs are essential. I'm guessing that most of us have some older CRM that and live in with a company that has technical infrastructure that isn't all beautiful and pulled together, and that you're dealing with, you bought a CRM in 2020, and then they bought this other type of security that messes with that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not like this perfect tied in a bow, everything works great. So I think it is well worth looking at. If you can budget, I think that the return on investment in getting an up to date, or taking the CRM that you have and using the new subscribing, or using the new tools that they have baked in that are AI driven, is well worth it. That goes back to sort of like looking at the data you have and then the infrastructure to make that happen. I think that's really important. And I guess I say that here. But I think you can point to like maybe some of the reasoning in here. You need that now to be able to take a look at what your audience is doing in a landscape that has just grown and grown and grown. So I think that's really important. And I would just say, we talked about a lot of different types of insights, like behavioral, conversations, where do they start, where are they dropping off. Start small, go with one. And then, like I said, start collecting data if you haven't. Super, super important. So CRMs, these are some of the bigger names that we have here, like Salesforce. And then real-time insights, again, good old Google Analytics, Amplitude, Customer IO comes up a lot. Sprout looked especially great. I'll be looking into that more for myself. And then automation and orchestration. This is sort of where everything comes together. We talk a little bit about specifics that we haven't yet, but that basic ability to be able to continuously and using agile workflows to have to get feedback, right? To be able to know everyone liked that Puppet ad from iTunes. They're like, awesome, get some more in the let's start creating more, right? Where are the Muppets? Starting to do that. The A/B testing, you can do way more testing all at the same time and get the results much faster. And then auto triggering the workflows. Like, again, say these two channels are social channels are really where you're focused on. How do you, in a lightweight fashion, go and look at 3 more social channels that have potential, but you don't necessarily want that team member spending time looking at, how do I put that up, and this, whatever, right? So how do you get that to be automated, which I think is one of the more powerful places to do that, right? So I think that continuous feedback is important, right? Because it gives you that data, right? And it shows you, and I think, again, things are just moving fast. Conversations are evolving, right? So how do you react to those evolving conversations, fragmented across different social channels, on a weekly basis, right? And that would be really fast, right? So I think these tools are giving you the ability to do that. And the way it's doing it, it's just detecting patterns, which is what our own human brains do. But in this case, the data is just too crazy. So it looks at different places where you can change your workflow and insert something, right? So if engagement drops, you send a win-back message, right? If you get someone all the way to a pricing page, you send them a comparison guide. If someone watches a demo, you offer a trial. So these are things that we're being able to speed up and do again. So this brings in the hyper personalization, right? So again, being able to do this for the 10 people that become high intent is really powerful, instead of doing it to 100, 1,000 people. Then these were some of the companies that really have that full orchestration. That can help you with your campaign, from creation to metrics, and really being able to connect the work that you put into a marketing campaign all the way through to the revenue that it drives, and being able to connect all of those dots, I think, is something that in the past, again, probably because of infrastructure, has been difficult. So anything like this, I think, is great. And I think, again, you should take the opportunity as the marketer to be able to bring that to your your manager, your executive team. Then I just wanted to quickly talk about, in the 5 minutes I have left, AI agents. So this is one of the things I talked about. I was like, is everybody using AI agents? So we talk about here, there's a few companies that are definitely have agents to offer. So let's talk about what the heck an AI agent is first, right? And I'm just going to read this out because I think there's sort of a sliding scale. There's lots of things that are agent-like that you'll see in all of these different tools, but very few are actual agents. So those large language models, like ChatGPT, they power AI agents. ChatGPT is not an agent. They're adaptive systems that make decisions using the training data, so they've been trained, right? Plus the new information they gather while completing a task. So, like, I give them a question and I'll give them some information about my problem. So they use what they've been trained on, plus that specific engagement. And then, if presented with such a situation, right? Humans have set the goal for what they should try and do, like try and solve my problem, but the agent is deciding how to do that within a set parameter, right? And so we're seeing this very poorly, I think, with chatbots, right? And more. I also heard a long time ago. I don't know if this is actually happening, but this seemed great, where you could call up a health line and tell them your problem, and they would like route you to the right person, or like you do this or whatever. So we'll probably see that. But inventory management, scheduling, stuff that is pretty straightforward. I think you're seeing this more, but I think you'll see more of it. So then I looked at a McKinsey thing report, and what this is showing here basically is no, nobody's using AI agents yet. Now, at the rate that things are changing, this could be very different in a year, right? And like I said, I think people are using like agent-like things that you'll see. That's a lot of what you're going to see in these AI tools as you look through them. Some of them might tout agents and stuff, but I don't think that's really it. And maybe that doesn't matter. But anyways, I think this is something that comes up. This is sort of like in the zeitgeist, AI agents. And I just wanted you to know that probably some marketing people are trying to make you think you're missing out on this space. You're not. That doesn't mean you shouldn't look at it. It's very popular, and sort of some of the places we're seeing this is, execution agents, right? Optimizing campaigns, content production agents, which again, it scares me, but whatever, we'll see. All of the different areas that we could do it, right? And so I think that, again, as sort of these AI tools that already exist out there start to incorporate technology that basically makes decisions on its own, you have to figure out where could that be helpful. Where could that be helpful to you? Where could that be helpful to your customer? So I could see chatbots being super cool. Right now they stink. I don't know if anyone's found one that's amazing. I think they're terrible. I also thought that a live person was a chatbot. So I don't know, right? So that's something. I guess I would just say technology, it continues to evolve. I think that the tools that you see here that have AI will eventually have AI agents. So if you get in there, you'll start to see what's going on in that space. So I'll leave you with that. Basically, again, I think you'll see what I want to say is don't be afraid of it. Don't treat AI as adversary. Learn about it, evolve, figure out, be the one at your company that is deciding how to use this and that is educating the other people. I think that's the best way to stop someone from coming and saying, oh, we're just going to get AI and that's going to take care of it. And you can cut your team by 2, right? No, you want to be able to be like, first of all, you don't want that situation. But I just think that educating yourself, taking a look at things, figuring out how to incorporate it into your strategy, I think is important, whether that's wholeheartedly or in little spots. Reading up on things, I think, is important. I'll take just a second to talk about how this is something that I can help with. I can actually come in and help and consult on your strategy. I can help in setting up all of these different tools. I can train people. I'm especially adept at content creation, and then we can figure out where AI makes sense in that. Um, but also, I wanted to be able to showcase this because I really did see a lot of fear and confusion um, out there. So I'm going to continue to put out content in this space. I hope it's helpful. And that is it. So I hope you all have a lovely end of year. I hope you have some time to spend with your loved ones and relax. And I will be back in the new year with some new content. If there's anything on this slide deck that would be helpful to you, please reach out. Like I said, if there's any training or services, that would be great. And yeah, good luck to everyone. I know you can do it.